Okay. Seems like we've been doing this a lot lately. But this is fun. This is a celebration for several reasons. But I want to offer some thanks first to some people very instrumental in getting this all accomplished. President Bounds, Chancellor Green, Coach Osborne, where are you? Very big in this, and that I'll talk about a little bit later. Turnkey Search and my good friend Gene D. Filippo, and of course my staff did a fabulous job and continue to do this great job as we go through the process. As I mentioned, this is a celebration. It's a celebration for the University of Nebraska and for Husker football. Certainly a celebration of bringing one of our own home, a favorite son. But I need to tell you this, if I were the athletic director at Missouri, Oklahoma State, or UCLA, my sights would have been on this guy. Doesn't matter that I'm at Nebraska. He is, in my opinion, not only the premier young coach in America, I believe he was everybody's first choice, and I got the pick of the litter. We got the pick of the litter. And I need to tell you that when we went into the weight room and Scott didn't know that the football lettermen were going to be in there, and there were over 100. It looked like there were 200. That choked me up. And we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to build this program back. And it gives me a great deal of pleasure at this time to introduce the 30th head football coach at the University of Nebraska, Scott Frost.
Thank you, Bill. It's an honor for me to be here. I can't tell you how special this is for a kid that grew up in Nebraska, basically grew up on this campus when Mom was a track and field coach here, and I was running around getting in trouble and getting run over on the Devaney Center track. From there to playing here, to being other places coaching for as long as I have, to get an opportunity to come back here is special to me. Words can't describe how much it means to me to be back here in a place that I love, a place that I understand, a place that I want to represent. I want to thank Coach Osborne for all he's done for me. Thank Matt Davison for helping make this happen. I want to thank Ronnie and Hank and Bill for choosing me and believing in me to lead this program. My sincere thank you to all you former players that showed up, my friends that showed up in the weight room to welcome me. My first thought when I walked in was, this is unbelievable, and my second thought was, most of these guys have been eating too much. I'm thrilled to be back because I think the time is right for this, and it wasn't always that way. But with Hank and Ronnie and Bill, I think the leadership is right. I think the time is right. I think the state is hungry for unity. When I was here under Coach Osborne, there was unity of purpose and unity of belief and unity of understanding and unity of support for this program, what it stood for, and what it was accomplishing. This program needs that again. This state needs that again. And when I walked into that weight room and saw all those players there, really made me excited about the fact that we can get this entire state behind this football program, get this entire state pulling for these players, get this entire state excited about what's going on, and we're going to put a product on the field that this entire state can be proud of. It's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take a lot of dedication from a lot of people. But there was a formula that worked here for a long time, and times have changed a little, but some of those same things are what is going to make this work again. And that's a lot of good people that care about this place, working really hard. It's toughness, it's dedication, it's work ethic. That's what Nebraska is, that's what the people of Nebraska are, and that's what this place is going to stand for while I'm here. So thank you.
Nicely done. So, probably be a question or two.
You go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll get a mic to you.
Hi, Scott. Welcome home. Ross Jernstrom from WWT in Omaha. Coach Osborne, what kind of influence did he have on your decision to come back to Nebraska?
Coach has been a mentor to me my whole life, and he was definitely played a part in this. What I respect about him the most in this process is that I think if he wouldn't have believed this was the right time or the right place for me, he would have told me. Even though he probably would have liked to have me back, if those things weren't all taken care of and this wasn't the place that he thought I should be, he wouldn't have told me to come. And it was still a hard decision, but I think Coach felt good about, like I said, the leadership here and the direction, and that made me a lot more comfortable with taking this job.
Hey, Scott, welcome back. Why is the time right to come back, and what message did you give to the players earlier today?
I had a good meeting with the team. I saw a lot of fire in their eyes. I saw a group that was excited. I let them know that there's going to be a lot of hard work to be done, that things are going to change. A lot of things are going to change, but it's going to be a really fun process. I've seen it happen before, and I know it can happen here. They looked excited. A lot of them came to my office afterwards, my new office afterwards, and I talked to them individually. I told them to go home over Christmas and enjoy the time off, but I want them to come back ready to go to work.
Hey, Scott. Eric Olson with the Associated Press. Obviously, your return has gotten a lot of buildup over the weeks. Could you just address just the extra layer of pressure that may be placed on you just because of the expectations here and your status as a kind of a native son?
You know, I played here, I understand it. I saw the best of this place. I also saw some hard times that maybe other people hadn't. But that's what makes this place great, is the passion that the people here have for it. Watching it from afar, I'm not sure that passion was unified, that passion was always completely supportive. It's my hope that by returning this to its roots, and maybe with me coming back, that we can get that passion all pointed in the right direction. When that happens at Nebraska, this is the best place in the country to be, and I hope I can bring that to this place.
Hey, Scott, Sean Callahan here from Husker Online. Can you just describe the emotions of the last month for you having your first child, going 12-0, winning a conference title, and then lastly, this opportunity you've got here with your dream job at Nebraska?
And then it's capped all off by you asking me a question. That makes it all. 2017 has been one of the best years of my life. Having a child, my first child at my advanced age, is the best thing that's ever happened to me. I coached a really special group of players down in Florida this last year, and we had an unbelievable season. I'm looking forward to doing that here. The staff that I'm going to bring in here is going to be a bunch of guys that these players will love, a bunch of guys that have tremendous character. They're going to care about these guys, that are going to mentor them and teach them and help them be better on and off the field. I'm looking forward to that. And I don't know if I'll ever have another year as good as 2017, but we're going to work really hard to make that happen.
Scott, Dirk Chatwin, Omaha World Herald. You
you were probably considered for this job 2 or 3 years ago, or at least considered coming back in your own mind. How are you more prepared now than you were then, and what specifically at UCF, helped you prepare for this?
That's a multi-layered question. I wasn't considered for this job last time it came open, and I'm glad I wasn't. I didn't get a phone call last time this job was open. I'm glad I didn't. The pieces are in place now. I believe a lot in Bill. I believe in Hank and Ronnie, and I think this state is ready to see this place return to what it was. And like I said, that doesn't mean we're going to win every football game, but I want this program to be something that the people of this state can get behind and be proud of, that these former players can be a part of and be proud of. And we all know what goes into that, the guys that played here. It's toughness, it's pursuit of excellence, it's unity. Those are the type of things that Nebraska stood for when we all played here, and that's going to happen again.
Hey, Scott. Brian Christopherson with Nebraska 24/7. What do you see as just kind of the challenges of the next few weeks with the early signing date and the pressure of that?
Yeah, I think they've done a pretty good job recruiting here. We took a look at what they have committed, and we're excited about that. The early signing period is going to change a lot of things, particularly for coaches who are going from one job to another. We're going to have to get to work. We already have boots on the ground, getting out to see recruits and letting them know where we are and who's going to be here. The response already has been tremendous, and I think even with a short amount of time here, we're going to be able to get a lot of things done.
Scott, you know the walk-on tradition here at the University of Nebraska. What's your message to the young men who are in high school right now, sophomores, juniors, and those seniors who will be graduating? What's your message for them for the walk-on tradition?
That's one of the things I talked to Bill about and Coach Osborne about. When we were here, we had a lot of players, and a lot of players were working hard at practice, and nobody was sitting on a knee. And we had a lot of kids from Gothenburg and from Minden and from Scottsbluff and from Wood River and from Columbus, and can go on. But this place needs that. I'm looking forward to trying to grow the walk-on program and make it what it was before. There's going to be some sacrifices that have to be made probably to get it there. But when you have a bunch of kids from the state of Nebraska that are in this program, those are the type of players that would bleed for this place and are going to work hard to make this work. Guys that are really pulling for Nebraska. And when I was growing up, every kid in the state of Nebraska dreamed about running out here on this stadium, on this field, wearing a red N on their helmet. There's too many kids from this state right now playing at other schools, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that those kids are here.
I know you were busy with your own thing, Scott, but how closely did you still keep a watch on Nebraska football, and how much did it pain you to see the struggles they've had?
When you're coaching, you're pretty busy with your own team, but I was able to watch this from afar, and from afar, it didn't look like the Nebraska that I knew. I haven't been in this building to see all these changes. This place is spectacular. They've done an unbelievable job with these facilities. I think I say the time is right because everything is set up here for us to do what we have to do to get this place back. And I know with the support of all the people in this state and all the former players and the leadership on this university, I know we can get it done.
Scott, Lee Barfnick from the Omaha World Herald. When and where were you offered this job, and when and where were you when you accepted this job?
This was a hard process for me because it's unbelievable the timing of having to make these decisions. The interest starts coming about midway through the season, and I was busy coaching a football team. And I care about my players, and the last thing I was going to do was let that process distract me from helping my team win games. I was loyal to that and didn't give it much thought until the very end of the season, and then the decision had to be made. Obviously, I was always very interested in this job. Talked to Bill, I think the last week of the season or second last week of the season for the first time. Didn't make a decision to come here until this past week, and wanted to do everything I could to honor my players at UCF and make sure that I was giving them 100% of my effort. And it worked out really well. But I'm glad I made this decision and looking forward to the future.
Scott, can you lay out kind of the plan for the bowl game at UCF? I know Danny White kind of talked about that a little bit yesterday, but what will be the plan with UCF and their bowl game for you and the coaches that will be following you here at Nebraska?
I think we still have some talking to do as far as it relates to the bowl game down there. We're looking forward to recruiting for the next couple weeks until the dead period. I don't want to leave the players down there without a coach, and they deserve to have the best chance that they possibly can, especially in the bowl game that they qualified for. So if it all works out, I'd love to go back and help those kids one more time. It's a unique and special group down there that we all feel very strongly about. It coincides with recruiting, so hopefully we can get some recruiting done and get back down there if it all works out and help, and then get back on the road up here.
Scott, do you have any assistants already in place, and can you name any of those guys at this time?
Yeah, I'm going to take a little time to name those guys, but I will tell you that the staff I hired at UCF is a group of men that are unbelievable coaches and have unbelievable character. And if it wasn't that way, we wouldn't have been able to make the turnaround that we made. A lot of coaches, when they get a bigger job or change from one school to another, think they need to go out and hire some different people. The guys that helped us win there can help us win here, and I expect the majority of them to join me.
Scott, how will you modify your system for the Big Ten?
I'm hoping the Big Ten has to modify their system for us.
Scott, Steve Sipple from the Lincoln Journal-Star.
Hey,
Hi. You thanked, one of the first people you thanked was Matt. What role did Matt Davison play in getting you here? How important was he in this process for you?
I'll give you a simple quote. Matt's role was pestering me until I agreed to come here.
Hey, thanks.
Bill, can you talk about that first meeting with Scott now and just what you took away from it, the whole experience?
Well, I felt that I needed to have a face-to-face visit with Scott before I would offer him the job. I did have various conduits that were getting my message to him, and one was just mentioned in the last question. And Matt did a great job for us, and you can tell he's a Husker through and through, and really appreciated his help. But we worked it out, and I to be quite honest, having been around this business for a long, long time, I had and continue to have a lot of appreciation to keep distractions at a minimum for Scott, who, if you haven't caught this, the only undefeated major college football team this season, and I didn't want to be the one to disrupt that. But at the same time, I felt I needed to see him. I was willing to fly to Orlando and work it out with his schedule. But Matt really worked this out for us to meet, in Philadelphia. There were more than sandwiches in Philadelphia. But both were real good. And had an opportunity to sit down with Scott, and Matt was in the room, and actually my wife Kendra was there. She gives a tough interview, and it was casual, and there were no notes. It was just, I wanted to get to know this guy, and I felt that maybe he wanted to get a feel for me too. And wasn't long, probably maybe an hour or so, maybe a little longer than that. And then we continued on up to play Penn State, and Scott had Temple the next day. So.
Mitch Sherman, ESPN.com. Scott, in light of what Bill just said, can you characterize your emotions heading into that meeting in Philadelphia, how you felt during the meeting, and also how you felt after?
Yeah, like I said before, my number one priority during that whole process was my team, and so I didn't want to let it distract me. We made sure and got our work done that week, and I knew a decision was coming soon, so I needed to at least sit down with somebody. Bill was nice enough to come up there, and after we got everything done on Friday night, we spent a little bit of time together. I didn't need to know a lot about this program. I'm from here, I get it. I know what it's all about, I know what it could be, I know what the potential is. So it just took me being comfortable with the leadership here and the timing. And it was a hard decision for me because some of the players I was coaching down there are special to me. We built something special at UCF. When it came down to it, this is home. And I can't think anything more rewarding in my career than turning this place around, and that's our goal and our aim.
Scott, other side. Parker Gabriel from the Lincoln Journal-Star. As you, with finals coming up and then winter break, with the current guys, how do you start to get into meeting with them, evaluating sort of what you have here, and balancing that with being on the road recruiting?
Yeah, I had a meeting with the team today. Got to meet some of them for the first time. A bunch of them came into my office to say hello and shake my hand. I told these guys they need to go home and enjoy Christmas, and a lot of things are going to change, and when they get back, I want them to be refreshed and ready to go to work. We got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of ground to cover. There's going to have to be a lot of shared experiences before we can earn trust with one another. But we're going to work harder than everybody else. That's what Nebraska's about. And we're going to be a more united team than anybody else. That's what Nebraska's about. And we're going to work our tails off in the weight room and be stronger and more physical and tougher than other teams, because that's what Nebraska's about. A lot of these guys will jump on board and do those things. Maybe some won't. But the ones that will are going to enjoy the ride. We're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to take this place back to where it needs to be.
Hey, Scott, what's your number one worry coming into this job?
Sitting in these chairs right here. I don't have a worry because I know we are going to do things the right way. We're going to do things in a way that the people of Nebraska are going to be proud of. We are not going to win every game that I coach here, and we're going to lose a few, and we might make some mistakes. But I know that the people are going to be able to get behind what we're doing here because we're going to do everything the right way. We're going to do everything with the right moral compass, and we're going to do everything in a way that's going to make Nebraska proud.
Hey, Scott, besides Matt and just some old teammates maybe tugging at you, how much of a sense did you get of just how much the entire state the last month was kind of all about Scott Frost and wanting to see you come home?
I was busy coaching a team, so I heard things. I saw a couple corny videos on YouTube, maybe. People here are passionate, and nobody knows that better than me. And we're looking forward to tapping into that the right way. And watching this program from afar, I don't think people have been unified in support behind something for a while. The men that I'm going to hire here, the players that we're going to have, we're going to do it in a way that Nebraska people can get unified and behind it. There's been, in my opinion, a lack of unity of purpose about this place for a while. And if I can bring that back, that'll be really rewarding.
Hey, Scott. Eric Olson again, AP. Kind of playing off of what Lee had said with regard to number one worry. I mean, just how would you describe the undertaking that you face here at Nebraska, and was getting 7 years on the contract crucial to kind of where you see the the necessity of having that amount of time?
No, at the end of the day, this is where I want to be. There was interest from other places. There was a big part of me that didn't want to move my baby after he was born a month ago, and my wife being happy. But this is where we want to be. And contract length is nice because it helps me to have confidence that they're going to give us the runway that we need to get this program off the ground and back to where it needs to be. But at the end of the day, none of that mattered, because when I made a decision about what to do, this is where I wanted to be, and I wanted to be home. And that's the decision we made. We're going to go 100 miles an hour in full speed from here.
Bill, why is Scott the premier head coach in the country, and why was he the pick of the litter?
Well, several reasons, and some of them he touched on here. We all know that he has a passion for Nebraska, and we know that he's a very, very good football coach, but he's got great integrity, he's got great morals, he cares about his players. I mean, you've heard him talking here, and he just can't get back to the fact that he genuinely cares about the players. And all those things are important. I said back, I think, when I had my press conference, that the style of offense that I think will capture the attention of the Big Ten is the Chip Kelly, Scott Frost offense. And you saw it. If you didn't watch it last night, I mean, my heavens, it was a track meet. And the options going, and a quality quarterback, and the tight ends, and very good line play. All of that is going to be very exciting for our fans. And may I just say this, to our fans, you are the best in the country. You've been patient. I know you've been frustrated, but I hope you're going to rally around Scott and what he's going to do, because we're going to keep that sellout record alive, and we could probably, hopefully, one day add more seats and even expand it. This is as I look at Scott's resume, and you have read it, and I'm gonna reiterate it. He played on both sides of the ball. He coached on both sides of the ball. His mentors, beginning with Coach Osborne, and through those in the professional ranks, and Chip Kelly himself, he was ready, and I felt he was ready 3 years ago. But now he's shown, taking a program that was 0-12 and is now 12-0, never been done before in major college football. That's saying something. So, like I said, there's a lot of names that are going around. And let me say this. There were others that really, really wanted Scott, and some prestigious programs. And there were some prestigious coaches that really, really wanted Nebraska. But this is a fit. And we talk about fit here, and it has substance. You got to fit at Nebraska. And I don't know of any better fit than this gentleman on my left.
Coach, what's the difference between turning around a place like UCF and a place like Nebraska?
What's the difference? I don't think there's much of a difference. We need to make sure the culture's right. We need to make sure the unity's right. We need to get to work in the weight room and on the field. We're going to practice hard and fast, but I told the players today everything we're going to do, it's going to be difficult, but they're going to have more fun than they've ever had before. Once you get that kind of unity and togetherness and you put in the work, success inevitably follows. Listen, we're going to go fast around here. And practices are going to be fast, and meetings are going to be fast. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to start building some of the same things with people here that we've been able to do the last 2 years.
Bill, when you watch what's been going on the coaching carousel in college football, how rare is it that it's been this easy when you've seen it be pretty hard this week for a lot of other teams across the landscape in college football to find a coach?
Oh, well, first of all, I've never seen this many top programs open up. I mean, these things tend to be cyclical, but this time around it's been somewhat crazy, and it still continues. There's going to be more openings, and there's going to be more movement, and that's why, if you recall, I said upon my arrival, wanted to look at all the options that I had, and started to look at some people that I thought would work here very well. And I never felt, and I will reiterate, that we needed to make a coaching change in the middle of the season. Look at those places that did it. They can't find a coach, and some settled for their third choice. All of my things were lined up, and as it got further along in the process, I knew Scott was the coach that I wanted, and I had talked to Chancellor and the President. They were behind me 100%, and I think really the fact that we let Scott do his business and take care of coaching his team and gave him that space was the right thing to do, and here we are today. So feel very good about it.
Bill, Mike Tobias with NET. Two quick questions. Did you talk to any other candidates that were near the top of your list, and talk about the need to have the salary be higher than it was previously?
Again, I had people that talked to other agents and other coaches. I did have conversations with a couple. I did not offer the job to anybody but Scott. And Scott never asked for money. I mean, what you see is what you get. What I felt that Scott wanted the most was enough time to get this done and get it done right. And he, like I, believes there's no quick fixes. We will build this football program on solid footings. And if we do stub our toe, it's not going to be a house of cards. And I felt that we needed seven years. And if I'm going to hire one of the premier coaches in the country, we're going to pay him a premier salary. And that's, this is Nebraska. This is as good as it gets. And I think we got as good as it gets, and we're going to compensate him properly.
Take two more at the podium here. Bill, what was your level of comfort like after you met with Scott, and how would you describe the way that you felt last week when it seemed to be all quiet from Nebraska as things swirled, out of control in some places nationally on the coaching search front? How did you feel as you were in your office last week, knowing that this was hopefully for you coming to an end?
Well, first of all, when I did talk to Scott in Philadelphia and we're sitting around a table in a suite, he was very genuine, and his concerns were with merit about, can Nebraska be the Nebraska it should be and the Nebraska it once was? And we had that was the bulk of our conversation. And I know I came away from that feeling very good about Scott Frost, and I think he came away from it feeling good about the commitment that we have at Nebraska to ensure that happens. And then I left him alone. I think I sent you one text, have a good week of preparation. I don't expect you to remember it. But worked with my staff, working with some of an individual that Scott had, and just to put the numbers together, and really it was a very simple process. Went very, very easy, which is really a credit to Scott and what his morals are all about and where his head is.
Scott, you talked a little bit about the last month, but could you just walk us through what the emotions have been like the last 20, 7 or 28 hours from kicking off in Orlando and through that game and winning a title, and then obviously getting here?
Yeah, I haven't slept in a while. I haven't eaten much. Haven't lifted weights or run in a little bit, so haven't gotten a haircut. There's been a lot going on. Yesterday was emotional for me because I genuinely care about the team I was coaching. It was an unbelievable victory and then really difficult task to tell them goodbye. Then I got on a plane and got up here. We got in late last night. What I'm most excited about is having the same kind of impact on a group here and developing the same kind of relationships with a group here and leading the charge to make sure we can have the same kind of success here. I know I'm going to put a staff in place that can do those things. I want to run out of this tunnel again in front of a bunch of fans that are going to cheer for us and applaud the other team and all the things that I love about Nebraska. And I'm looking forward to that. But first, I'm looking forward to getting a little sleep.